surprise, surprise, it's ace on the desk. Enjoy.
Thank you very much, Milosh. I mean, it's a loose definition of keeping it together, isn't it?
I mean, he tried, but barely.
There are the bells. There they go. And into game we go for map number 3. Very, very shortly. Cafe. It's not looking good for Empire right now, huh?
That's a very nice way of putting it. I know they said Cafe can be an Empire map, but 71 to 29%, yeah, that's going to probably grow. I think you want them to get a couple of rounds early. They need to get a couple of rounds early. This cannot turn into an overtime map. This cannot turn into a late fight, I think, because last time they were here in the sort of big grand stage at the best of 3 at Mexico, it was the opener, and it was BDS's only map that they took in that best of 3 showdown. So yeah, okay, you can say it's Empire's map, you can say whatever. The Empire we've seen so far today, it hasn't been the Empire that we've wanted to see, I think, or expected to see.
We've seen we've seen great performances out of BDS, particularly on this map, and that's where my worry for Empire comes in. You know, you've gone through their map pick, you've gone through BDS's map pick, you've gone through lots of map picks, and still they are yet to come away with more than 3 rounds on the day. 14-3 is our overall scoreline in rounds at the minute to BDS, and that is not really indicative of the sort of final that we might have expected between these two teams. It's been an absolute run over so far. There's no other way of putting it. Looking at our map bands then as they rain in, our operator bands rather, as they rain in for Cafe, it's going to be Thatcher, Maverick, Valkyrie and Maestro. No major surprises there. The Maestro a little less banned, I might say, than the others, but still a lot of value in intel. That's basically the message that we're getting.
It's it. I mean, if you're looking at where those bubbles are played in place, especially on the top floor, they're pretty standard holes that require a little bit of grenades and trickery to get rid of. It's a limitation, but you've often seen Echo played across this map, especially on the sort of ground floor in the kitchen side. Although we've seen that a little bit less recently. You've seen a big extension of intel. The Valkyrie is just a sort of standard removal. At this point, it's too much intel. It's intel that we saw be a big turning point in the showdown for Secret. Yesterday, when they were playing against the Russian team, they had Gonfield and those cams all the way out on the sides, and it was just such a well-pieced together sort of play. And
Oh, we saw Sleben get the ace on the back of him.
That's
it. It kicked off the ace for Sleben, realistically, was the volume of information that he was getting on that external cam of the man on the rappel. It just really helped him to make that challenge. Now, straight into things we go. It's going to be round 1, and we're heading to the mid-floor. BDS choosing to take us to Reading and Fireplace for our first site. Interestingly, Renshiro bringing along the Oryx. Already taking a little bit of damage, but don't worry. It's not from his teammates' bullets. It's from him opening up rotations. Every time he runs through a wall, he takes a little bit of damage because he's a chunky boy. He's got some muscles on him, but he's not invincible,
Yeah.
He cannot run through walls for free.
It's a lesson in life for anyone out there. Don't just run through a wall.
Plasterboard or otherwise.
It will hurt.
It will.
It'll take a little bit of damage. And, you know, and that sort of thing. But a little bit of damage, to be fair, at this point, is all Empire's really been able to deal. So if BDS is dealing it to themselves, that might add up to a lot of bit of damage. You hope that the two pieces come together and form some sort of more delicious prize than 3 rounds over 2 maps. Cafe is, I was going to say the start of something, but it has to be. Because if it's anything less, it's over.
That's it. It's last chance saloon now for Team Empire if they want to get anything out of this. I mean, let's be honest, the worst place finish that they can achieve in second place is not the end of the world for what is a very stacked EU field in 2021. It is still a good performance, but you know that they are going to be disappointed with how things have gone today. Now, Joystick getting himself straight in there on the Gemini clone, just working through, picking up those utility placements, where the operator's playing, just trying to feed all that information in. However, it doesn't go fantastically well when he tries to follow it up with a push on the entry,
OLMs, what a take across the top of the boards. They let the Prisma go by and popped up at the right possible moment. It is a heck of a gun in the right hands, and sometimes it's questioned where the Des are, but OLMs definitely has an argument and a shout for the MP5. In this sort of stretch, it's going to just be more of this pressure, this push on the back with Shaiko onto Lumber. They've been able to find a little bit of ground, a little bit of clearance, always here, watching towards that new backside, hoping for another bit of a swing, but they've actually already pulled themselves back. BDS know they don't have to overextend. There's some territory there, but they're more than happy to rotate back.
They're doing well so far, Empire. To say they've lost that man, they've got themselves control of Piano and Cigar, but it's now about dislodging these BDS defenders. And right now, that's not looking great because they're not having much of it. However, Shaiko does take a lot of damage there, and the progress is starting to mount from Empire, but the kills and bodies are stacking up as Rafal finds that kill onto Scyther. It's bringing us in towards that final minute, and BDS, they've almost decided that enough is enough on the top floor, but Rafal is still up there. He's hiding, he's waiting, ready to pounce.
That's the tricky scenario because he's buried in the middle. He's on a slow creep and crawl round, and they're aware of it. And there's the very important engagement that goes Rafal's way. He's waiting for the pressure and the break. It comes back round, but you've also got to throw your minds back to how much utility from Empire was thrown at the back of the white stairs. They were signaling themselves up for a push. They threw so many flashes with the chance of a grenade behind the back of it, but then Rafal strikes, bites them, takes the momentum out of the wheel, knocks the carriage down, and suddenly everything's come off. And Bride decides he wants to break it a little bit further. Dan, with the F2 top to bottom, finds and rocks the world of one, but, well, there's a second, the third is on, a triple in the drive, but the book is red. It's a trade-off at the end, unfortunately, for him. And the nice shot comes through, but BDS, they're able to hold on to the first. Is a little bit of hope for Empire? Is it too early?
Well, I don't think it is. BDS's rounds continue to stack up. I don't know. I know the first map was 7-3, but I don't know how many they won at the end consecutively. But it had to be at least one. So I'll take that and say they have at least 9 back-to-back rounds now. Maybe more. I can see them flicking through her notes.
It was one, but
was it just one at the end? Empire got
it was
the next last right. So 9 rounds in a row for BDS now across 3 maps, and that is a big blow for Empire. That is now something for them to really have to break through sooner rather than later, because the problem is, from BDS's point of view, winning is a habit, winning is a mentality, and right now they are slap bang in the middle of that, and they are absolutely running through things. Renshiro, interestingly, bringing along the Tachanka, and he's just going to absolutely rip open that wall between Kitchen and Red Stairs, so it's going to be very difficult for Empire to make any push into Court Check, into Red Stairs, into Wedding Window. All that area is going to be challenged by BDS.
Okay, I say I want a little bit of hope there from Empire. Obviously, it was Dan who was the only hope. He almost pulled an ace clutch. Obviously, that very last kill was a trade. If it had been clean, if it had been cleaner, if it had been potentially on a LAN client, obviously we've got to play with what we have, and he played his heart out. But that's an energy that you want from Empire, because it's an energy that has pretty much entirely been missing. There was a bit of it from Scyther on the first map, but otherwise there hasn't been that spark and that fury that BDS have been able to bring. They've been so calm, cool, confident, and just cavalier attitudes on every swing that they want to take and more.
I'm just chuckling away. I absolutely love watching that Tachanka turret at work. It's absolutely nuts. We've just got Renshiro deleting a large part of the wall in between the 2 sites there, and it's just to allow those deep challengers from back in towards Coffee and Freezer all the way through to that forward plant site. It's just opened things absolutely wide up, but it does it within about 10 seconds. It is by far and away the most effective destructive tool.
They also have the bakery one open as well. They've really
very aggressive.
I mean, it's such an open hold with the angles that come through from Coat Check too. That means if that bakery player goes down, they have a bit of a cross angle, Rafal on the camera, and then one soft here onto that small prep room swing as well. It's just so much of, yeah, go on, have a go if you think you're hard enough. And they're not quite sure if they are because of how BDS has played it. And at this point, BDS feels like they don't have to overextend. They don't have to throw themselves into this too much. They'll see somebody before they even really get close to that double door, and that means Empire have to go wider. But look, even higher always, he's still clearing from the top.
This is it, Empire not looking to move in too quickly towards Baker, and it could be, you know, the openness of that hole to begin with. But not uncommon for teams to try and get themselves into the mid-floor, open up those vertical angles and start trying to push those defenders around, and that's exactly what Scyther's going to do. Always hasn't joined him yet, it doesn't look like, on the sledge. He's just getting in there now, actually. We can see he's moved into Fireplace and will start opening things up. But 1 minute 12 left to go. There is absolutely plenty of time for Empire here to work with these vertical angles. They've still got all 5 operators on side. They're starting to deal with that on-site utility as well, but it's not easy to get those X-Kairos pellets through the bars and onto the castle.
It's an awkward shape that expands very quickly, like little foam dinosaurs in a bath, and it means that it's not going to slither and slink. By the time it gets there, it's a bit of a moist mess. So they can't quite get the angles they want through onto the sink and the coffee corner at the same time. It means this drop's going to be a little bit more awkward, and with 40 seconds and every player's still standing, it's the concern, it's a firing line, and sometimes you just got to try and take these hot drops if you're running low on time, and low is very much the message that they have on their MO. The long-range fire doesn't quite get the bounce that it wants at first, but there's the pickup in the exchange, there's the hot drop, and there's some pressure that comes through from the Cocktail side. Joystick, he's going to go for a bit of a slow and steady swing as they go for the pickup. 15 seconds though, and it's going to come down to a plant, and oh no, that's still an Echo on the board, and oh no, that's a Bride off the board. There's a bit of an instant swing and revenge there as Shepard's going to see if he can stick it a handful of seconds, and Scyther drives through, but Rafal, they're paying enough attention. There goes the diffuser, it's cold on the ground, and Scyther cannot get the piece together on the red corridor, and Renshiro is T-posing for joy.
Another big celebration coming in from Renshiro there as BDS make it 10 rounds in a row. Empire must feel hard done to, so close with Shepard trying to get that diffuser down, but in the nick of time, BDS come in and just rip that round away from them and are able to close it out. 2-0 now, BDS. They've got the reading room locked down, they've got the kitchen locked down. Only the top floor left to go to complete that full rotation of the 3 defensive sites that they're likely to use. But with the way BDS are going, who knows, they might style it out and go for the full 4.
They're confident, and confidence is one of the toughest things to punish in Siege because it requires you to try and play further than you've played before. Sure, a lot of players at this sort of height of their careers, at this sort of comp level, they'll get heated, they'll get into the game, they'll get energetic and try and drop it, but you're on the 3rd map, you're on the 10th loss of a round in a row. And the last map was one that you really want to forget about as quickly as possible. This is your place to play, and to be fair, okay, it's Cafe. I know that there's a lot of statistics that will vie it in one favor or the other in terms of attack and defense, and you can see some creative attacks, but to be fair, where Empire have sort of structured themselves, it's very well put together defenses. They're probably looking for 2, potentially a push of 3. It's just that combination of they've got to see if they can cement something here against BDS with being bitterly close just before.
I'm interested to see what the plan is from BDS here. They've brought the castle along, they've barricaded the double door inside of Piano. Normally that would signify and show us that they're going to play somebody inside of Cigar Shop, the double barricade being there to help protect them. But they don't have anybody with the shotgun, which is usually who you would play there. Smoke or Mute with the shotgun, and you try to make the challenge close angle onto the red stairs. There's no other utility in there, so it doesn't look like that's going to be the case. The castle barricade looks like it's purely there just to try and slow Empire down, prevent them from marching into Piano too quickly. The problem is, it might actually provide a little bit of protection for Empire. If they breach the top red wall and move in, for example, then it's going to be difficult to make a flank and challenge through Cigar.
One of these parts that we've seen Empire do quite well sometimes is get into the building. They're able to make sure they have a little bit of clarity, go for the drop, and as you said, if they're offered that from the castle and the setup here, it might be a bit of a build, but they are still cautious. They know BDS aren't just going to hand them a bit of free ground without some sort of recompense, and the payment is often in blood. All the way, the reveal towards those mirror windows, and that's now both Twitch drones down and out. It means they're going to stay locked and secluded on the far side, as there's still some late reinforcements and handiwork being done. The rotation at the top of the staircase is going to be popped open. It gives them a bit of a wider swing, but they're about to meet a mirror window, which is a slightly different animal towards the usual shield at the top, and it's a slightly tougher one to try and thread a grenade towards.
As expected, Empire moving in through top of red stairs to get themselves established in Piano, but as you pointed out, quite rightly, it's all about that mirror window now. It's all about how can Empire break down this Piano defense. If they can do that and get themselves established in there, they should have a great foundation and beachhead for the rest of the round to be able to build towards a plant, but they've got work to do. There's a castle barricade on the washroom window, which is going to make it difficult. They can't get the utility in there, they can't necessarily get the nades in there. The Gon 6 will clear it out, and there goes the mirror window as well. Great interplay from Empire to move that mirror along, and that now allows, as we can see, Shepard on the Hibana moving in, doing more damage with those X-Kairos pellets, starting to pick apart this defense piece by piece. This is the best round from Empire we've seen in a while.
And that's it. And now as they're able to get themselves towards the top of red, they're just slowly creating a pocket of space. 40 seconds though, and it's going to turn into a bit of a mad dive. And sometimes those haven't really gone into their favor. It's a couple of scratches, a couple of bites, but nothing that's really gnawed off a limb to go for the drive. The concern, there's still players underneath from BDS. They still have a bit of a watch here on the width of white as well. So the drive is going to have to be a little bit aggressive, a little bit sharp, and that's the start. The grenade all the way to the back line. I believe might have been able to pick up the player that was underneath, but the trade comes out. Rafal with the wide swing goes for one and is peppering bullets, but it's suddenly all back and forth as Dan takes one, as does Rafal. It's now barely any time. Shaiko, one more, has a mirror window and a bit of a hope and a dream, and Alems is the backside locked off. It's always out of bullets, out of time, and out of rotation. 3 in a row for BDS.
Empire, it was so good. They got in there, they dealt with the difficulties that they found in front of them, but then they let Shaiko back in the washroom, and he steps up and gets a critical kill towards the end of the round there that just really swung that momentum, and then more rained in for BDS, and the Empire attack fell apart, and it just felt so good up to that point, like they could really make that happen. But Empire, you now find yourselves 3 down. You're staring down the barrel of back-to-back 7-0s. I mean, you're only 4 rounds away. It seems like a crazy thing to be saying. You know, I can feel people are going, oh, come on, Ace, we're a long way off yet. Are we? With the way BDS are playing right now?
Oh, it's so
or with the way Empire are playing right now?
I think that's it. It's,
you know,
it's entirely it. It's lopsided. It's, for now, one-sided. Because every time we start to see little bits of Empire, every time we start to get a little taste of why they're here, already cemented in second and, well, trying to fight for first, but BDS are making a much better claim to that famous at this moment, it becomes this sort of step up of BDS go, yeah, but we're still here. And we're still here at this high level that we've been sort of flaunting and playing. Okay, how are they here? Oh yeah, an unbeaten run in the 3rd split in the most recent stage. Yeah, both teams have had a bit of a showing on land, but this isn't land. This is that online animal that BDS is so good at taming, controlling, and then utilizing to do this. Vicious attacks and defenses that just seem impenetrable at points.
You know, the reference is absolutely right. And they've got them on a leash right now. This is all up to BDS. They are in full control at the minute, and there is just very little that Empire seem to be able to do, even when their attacks shape up well, and they're looking like they're on top of things. Now, we're back to reading again. Clearing out top floor was something Empire had a difficulty with last time. If you remember, Rafal on the Kaid was able to stay up there late into the round in barback storage, get himself kills even. He did get closed down, but the end of the round finished very shortly after because the damage was done at that point. So Empire need to get into that top floor quicker this time, and they need to play with confidence. We've heard them say before that they felt, and this is a while ago, but they felt they were lacking in confidence, and that's why they were moving slower and struggling with time. And it just feels a little bit the same for me today here. They're not going in and getting the entries. They're not going in and just taking the fight to BDS, and that's what they need to do on this top floor.
Joystick slinks past and they have the cover as Dan drives even further. Sees a body at Lumber, can't quite connect, but does there. The follow-up onto Rafal is dropped in the middle of the vault, but it's Alems with a quick bite back and a bounce down. He's not going to hang around too long around white. He knows he has Renshiro as a bit of a stretch, and they still have a burn of utility. It's toying with the temptation of heading back up, but there's no need right now. They still have, obviously, the side underneath. There's always the chance of a rotation around on the far side, and he's sort of waiting for this approach. Renshiro wants to hear that pull on a pin and the bounce of a grenade, and look at this stack up of intel. They're waiting for just a noise, just a scent and a sound.
Always starting to work with that sledgehammer now. Empire have got everything they need here. This is the foundation of a reading attack. They've got the kill. They've pushed them back down to site, and they've started opening up the verticals, but they haven't dealt with the flank. Renshiro still pushing them. Shaiko, BDS find 2 kills, and they find themselves now 4 versus 2.
3DS indeed. He's flying that flag as Scyther is able to bite back, but Joystick with the slow creep down the stairs has found a little bit of solace inside white. However, will it be the Christmas that he wants, or will it be the last thing he sees before he's quickly transported to an afterlife by an Oryx? This will be a call out. He drops down, he pulls back for the next fight and finds it. Well played by Joystick. One more suddenly in between, and there's an Empire round. They find one. Okay, it's the first in about 12. But they find one.
That's the important thing for Empire. It's got to stop somewhere, hasn't it? You know, you've got to be able to put the brakes on no matter how down you might be at that particular time, and they've been able to do it there. And it wasn't necessarily an easy round. They found themselves 2 versus 4 and were able to turn it around. And, I mean, I got so excited, I'm just renaming players in there. Just, you know,
it's good. It's catchy.
BDS is all about BDS. He's captaining them to glory, so he is BDS.
You'll see it on their socials later. Ask for a free hoodie for it.
You've just asked for me. So, moving into round 5, it's going to be kitchen and service. BDS choosing not to double down on reading. They're going to go back down to that bottom floor, and why not? They defended every site in the first 3 so well that they might as well mix it up and continue to take that second option.
You got 1, Empire. You got 1, and it was against the bars. And to be fair, you almost got 1 against that medal as well before, but it would have been an ace build. Joystick able to find 2, and I think the call came through there because you saw there on the Yorick swing that maybe he also saw the second body down underneath, but they had the impression that someone was going to try and bite from reading. It was very well played from Joystick. Great positioning, great awareness, and a great result. A result they've desperately sort of needed. But there's still a lot more that they need to try and thread together here. Can they get themselves an even attack half? Can they even just try and claim a second before they go to the defense, where they might be able to bolster with some of the barricades it offers?
Renshiro and Breeder just doubling up there on the denial operators on the defence. It's something that we've come to see a little bit more often. We still don't see too much of Tachanka, especially alongside Smoke as well. But just think about the volume of time that allows you to potentially deny plants. It's not just about denying plants with these operators as well. It's important to remember we often talk about that, but sometimes it's about denying avenues of attack as well. If you find yourself being pushed from a particular spot, a particular avenue, you can shut that down. You can close that lane off with these operators. So it's not just about having that plant denial, and by bringing both of them, you can have Tachanka, for example, shut down that lane of attack while still having the strategy of Breeder with smokes in pocket ready to deny a plant as well. So it does give you more flexibility, but it does speak of a heavier site hold, but that's not unusual for BDS.
Dan is trying to get some semblance of solace here to make sure that they've got an idea of where the lockdowns have come through. Alone and burying himself inside pillar and just getting these stretch angles, we've seen him pull off the clutch of the season in a lot of people's books from exactly that position. And if there's ever time to bring out those season-defining moments, this is definitely it. A steady build and break across the top as they're trying to just isolate some of the play and players around. There's big sight lines from before the Tachanka forevermore, but here they're knocking on the door, and they're doing it with a good 30 seconds more than they had before. It is this break towards Freezer. It is more of a stretch, and I'm curious to see if Joystick tries to take the fight inside Cocktail sooner than he did before.
This is it. It's not an easy fight to take, trying to pass around that corner, especially into a deployable shield that Breeder. He's just going to hold himself behind for as long as possible. And as I was talking about the potential use of that denial, we see it here. Breeder shutting down that lane of attack. The wall's been opened into Freezer, so out go the smoke canisters to prevent that. And they know that they've got Renshiro's Shumika launcher to fall back on if there's a plant attempt, but always comes in with a big nade onto Elems, taking down the mute, and that now leaves us 5 versus 4, Empire with an advantage here in round 5.
They're checking the site that it's clear, but it's the cross angles on the way down that cost them before. It's a very great pick, though. You could see Joystick was cautious about taking a fight with Breeder because he was concerned about the swing to come through from that door, and that gives him a little bit more of an option as they break their way through into the bakery. It's Renshiro with 1, just heavily lifting on that LMG. He's traded out by Dan, and it's a very important take, and as Scyther gets some pressure onto the backside, suddenly Red is in a lockdown as it was before. Rafal inside Cocktail as the plant starts to go down. It's Shaiko that gets strapped off next, and now it's all down to the solo player in what is the first post plant in a very long time. Rafal has everything to do here and starts the scrappy fight across the boards of the sushi table. Can't quite get it cooked, locked, and lopped off, but instead has to go wider and wider. Just trying to find a route through, but it's a pop-up shop from Dan that is now closed. Empire, 2 rounds in a row, and that is the first time they've done that today.
Empire able to just track down exactly where Rafal was in that late post plant there. Quite easy to shut him down, not a problem in the 3v1. Empire just honestly looking like a different team the last couple of rounds. They've come in, they've problem solved, and we see them laughing now. They've got a couple of rounds, maybe there's cause for some smiles. They've managed to pick BDS apart a lot better. Rather than playing into them necessarily and giving away those kills, they're winning a few gunfights. They are dislodging tricky players like Breeder. You know, they're giving themselves the opportunity to get into site and get that diffuser down, but not as a Hail Mary. They've got control. They've got the ability to ensure that Shepard can plant that diffuser, and they've got him locked down and covered, and that's important. It's something that maybe Empire haven't done back in round 1. I think it was round 1, round 2. We saw an attempt at a plant from Shepard, and it was just shut down because they didn't have the cover in place. Better control from Empire there. We're going to see the same defense coming out of BDS this time. They're going to be thinking if they can win a few of those gunfights, they probably win the defense.
Well, they got to sort of lock it in. As you said, it's the best that we've seen Empire across the entire series. It's been this past 2 rounds. It's the first time we've seen them tie a couple of rounds in a row, and it was convincing. It came down to the cover that happened around Bakery side with the pop-up there of Dan able to keep driving it, but also if you look at Dan, you look at Joystick, they're both starting to pop off, and that was the highlight of the start of the day was, okay, with everything else that's going on in these 2 teams next 2 months, it's going to turn into a bit of a scrappy firefight sort of game, which we quite like to see. If both teams have those firefight players step in, that's starting to happen for Empire.
Ranchero just trying to hold down Bakery again. It's the same position that we saw him in last time, but he got himself 1 kill, was unable to find the second, and that really opened the door a little bit for that double-sided pressure that came in from Team Empire. But for the time being here in round 6, Empire are back onto the clearance. Top floor down, they're going to look to get in, get rid of any roamers, which isn't usually, as I've said already, too much of the game plan of BDS. They like to play close to site, sort of within a floor or so. They don't tend to have anybody too far away. It's certainly the case here, and Empire straight in, and that is quick, always within the first minute able to start opening up that floor.
Alem suffered as the early drop of death before with the grenade that rolled round to the bomb chassis. He is playing a little bit more attentive, but it was almost caught out. If Always had looked and tried to solidify after that, that would have been a very easy pickup for him. Couple of explosions start to happen, and that's why he's being so cautious. He's just making sure he doesn't get caught by the C4 that's otherwise going to steadily pop its way across. That should get rid of the Electra on the hatch. It does, which will buy them up a bit of the movement that they like. They generally have this as their approach, and as the pellets start to pop off onto the hatch itself, not quite enough, but, well, that's definitely not enough. They hit the side of your player, and you're going to have to fight 2 more.
And 2 more do go indeed onto the hatch. That'll open things up for a potential freezer drop. And look how much of this floor has now been destroyed. No joy has been found yet onto the defenders, but what each one of these holes is doing is forcing them out of position. It's meaning that they can't play inside of site safely, and we can see that from BDS now. The majority, if not all of their operators, are outside of the kitchen. They've been forced away by this vertical pressure, and that starts to give Empire the kind of access that they may need in this final 50 seconds, but there is still Breeder out in VIP. He has to be cleared out.
As they pop that fire down all the way from the opposite side towards the drop on the hot hatch, it's made even hotter. And that freezer probably isn't regulated by Osher, as they're going to see if they can try and get some semblance of inside it. There it is, over the top. They're inside the site now, and they're going to see if they can try and stick it, but there's nowhere the cover can get to. Hey, who's that? That's an Echo drone. He's making his presence known, and out of the fire and into worse fire, the gun kind that catches them, picks the diffuser back up, and oh, every single route is marred and mapped by a Tachanka that at this point is that terrifying AI enemy that's just had their head lopped off. Almost finds a second, but it's Shaiko with the slip past and suddenly dropped off. A 3 versus 2, 5 seconds. It's happening around in the bakery, and BDS get their 4th.
BDS straight back onto things there, and it was an audacious attempt from Empire, getting themselves inside a freezer 5v5 and thinking, let's get this down. But we saw firsthand the power of Tachanka and well-placed Shumika canisters. Renshiro doing a great job. We even had the first person. You could see the thought process of Shepard. You could hear it in his mind. I'm going to go to the... Oh, nope, there's fire there. Oh, I'm going to go back to the... Oh, nope, there's fire there. It was just so well played from Renshiro to just lock him down and force him into a position that he could flip to the turret, boom, pick up the long angle, get a nice kill, and what a round from BDS. Much better defense of Kitchen that time. And it's a shame because Empire did a good job. They forced them completely out of sight. They had to defend that externally throughout the majority of that round, but Empire unable to take advantage of that.
It's that sort of tricky moment there as well, as it was, for anything, well rehearsed. Renshiro knew exactly what he wanted to bounce that on. All the openings were done by a man whose sole purpose was to play with time, and time has been a very vicious thing for Empire.
One of the big differences in that Empire attack compared to the previous round where they won on Kitchen was no pressure into Bakery and Renshiro. And look at what happened. When he was allowed to play on the Tachanka, he just locked the round out. They couldn't get the diffuser down. They just couldn't play into it. And last time around, they sent 2 men down to Bakery. They hassled him. So it freed that up. They didn't have that challenge coming from Bakery anymore. And not something that they probably should have dropped off from the attack.
Okay, Empire, it's not the end of the world. It's a 4-2 on a cafe, and now you're onto your defense. This is your map, and this is the map that obviously went away from you when you played BDS in Mexico. What else can you show in terms of growth? Because to be fair, Coastline was one of the ones that went to your favor. So it's a matter of demonstration. It's a matter of opening as you mean to go on. They get this, and suddenly that divide of 3 is very dangerous. You get this, and well, suddenly it's only 1 away from an all-squared game.
Empire are going to be setting themselves up on the top floor then. Slightly different setup to the one that we saw coming out of BDS. No castle this time around. They've used the Aruni instead, but that signals that there will be no player challenging into Cigar. So it's going to be pretty free for BDS to get themselves established inside of the map. They'll just drop that red hatch and they'll look to push in, take control of Cigar and get themselves into Piano. But the question is, will Empire's defense, will it be quite as stalwart? Will it be the brick wall that BDS were able to put up when it came to getting into Piano? They were just so insistent on keeping that area rotating back in even after Empire had cleared them out. Now, it's quite a different approach here from Empire. There's no mirror windows. There's no open challenge from Washroom into Piano, for example. They're going to have to do things a little bit differently here. And right now, what they're doing is allowing BDS at least partially into the map.
Well, it's a slow creep and crawl, and the Kaid Claw gets caught by a drone that was making sure they had the overwatch they needed to. But still, for the comparisons that we've had so far, it's one of the slowest approaches we've had so far. It's Cafe. It sort of requires it here, and they're making sure that they can build and pull apart the parts of the whole that matter the most. The first is now going to be this break. Jammer gets caught out by that explosiveness, but only a bit of a sliver. And as they dance around the gate itself, they realize that time is sort of running out of that hourglass, so they've got to try and get a breakaway before it becomes an absolute shakedown.
That's Washroom cleared out then. BDS need to get a little bit more decisive here, you feel. They're going in tentatively. Shaiko on his own pushing. Not too much support for him yet, but the next step is to get barback storage open and force that Empire player either out completely or deeper into Freezer. It looks like they've vacated the area, but always manages to pick up the entry. Shaiko, however, managing to trade immediately by picking one up onto Dan. 4 versus 4. And Shaiko might have an opportunity here, to just push straight down onto Lumber.
That's it, and you can see Shepard's underneath still causing problems, but the rotation of Joystick was the worst time, and that was purely just 2 ships passing in the night, but one of them accidentally goes straight into a cliff face that they had no idea was popping up, and Renshiro on the dangle on the opposite side goes for the hot swing in. It's going to be a firefight, but Shaiko's still driving right up wide. It's over the top and down to the bottom. It's suddenly a 2 versus 2, and Scyther is retaking the mantle in the middle as the hot pings are making things very tasty for BDS. Yes, somehow. How they lock it out when all the intel was against them, I cannot tell you, but I for sure can tell you that's a 5-2, and that is so dangerous.
After Renshiro got shut down on his attempted shakedown, rappelling in through that window, I really thought that Empire might be able to turn something out of that round, but BDS, they just kept on fighting, and when it all came down to it, they just threw everything into the pot with people running in under the skylight, get the smoke canisters out there, and just see what comes from the chaos. But you gotta feel sorry for Joystick.
Oh, that was...
You gotta feel sorry. He runs around the cut nade.
You could, like, nothing you can do in that situation.
What a night.
There's nothing you're doing wrong. There's nothing you're doing arguably right. You're just doing something and you die. And those are the most frustrating deaths in Siege.
And the thing is, from Shaiko's point of view, that just shows what hours in the game will do. He's putting a nade into a common position. He knows it's not uncommon for somebody to play on white stairs. So I'm going to put a nade in there, and we'll see what happens. And it just goes to show that, you know what, sometimes, give it a go.
Give it a go?
Just give it a go. If you know players are quite often in that spot, give it a go. Just let go of the nade, see what happens.
there as well. Shaiko, he drove himself into the position so he could try and catch the rotation originally. He was hoping that the pressure that started to come through from Cigar onto that Freezer would force somebody back into the bathroom, but instead he actually got rewarded from the other side. The awareness on the pre-fire there from the swing of the player that went inside didn't quite have the connection it wanted to, but in the same breath, that's what Shaiko was prepped for, and then from then on he's able to put the pressure down to White, which is what Joystick tried to offer some semblance of safety back onto. I mean, it's a frustrating moment for Empire, but today has been full of those. They're still got to try and tune themselves in. It's one round, and they're still only 3 behind BDS, but this could be the third map.
Empire this time going to be defending Reading Room. They've switched things up, but I've got a little bit of a concern for them. Reading Room is reliant on that top floor hold. I tell you what, it's not going to be too reliant on it as BDS are just rushing in here, Em. They're going to try and get that diffuser down. Lems goes in. Where have we seen this before? He gets a kill. Dan this time able to trade it out. They keep trying to get that diffuser down, but it's going to be the bodies that go first. 3 versus 1. This is all up to Side. The shutdown, the round is over in a matter of seconds, Em. BDS, they are unstoppable today and put themselves onto map point.
Blink and you miss it. I think doesn't even cover half of that round. That was just opportunity.
I was trying to talk about top floor holds.
Don't worry about that. Other stuff's going on. They're not worried about that. BDS, they have another idea. They're like, oh, Tim's good. Tim's got his ideas.
He'll flip it over. He'll just get into the action. Yeah, I was going to say I was concerned for Empire on the basis that they'd not really been able to keep control of the top floor when they were defending top floor, let alone defending Reading, where you try to hold top floor, but with less utility. It's like you turn the difficulty up on the top floor hold. So I'm sort of worried. I'm thinking, how do Empire go about doing this? They're not going to be able to lock this down. It doesn't matter in the end, because what they weren't watching was the Reading door rush.
I mean, it's one of those sort of situations as well where Empire did start to bite back in the fight. They were looking at the damage that they could do against them. They put themselves in a situation where it was blow for blow for a lot of the points. Okay, when those engagements go against you, a rush, generally the first rush of this game, is going to be the most likely culprit because you're still sort of getting yourself tuned in. BDS know that they're going to be expecting firefights. Empire, they have a call, and then they've got to try and work out exactly what's going on. It's messy. And messy often leads to slipped kills, and it leads to a 3 versus 1. It leads to a match point. It leads to Empire now having to take every single round of this to drive it to OT.
And that is slap bang in the middle of where Empire find themselves. Their best and only hope right now is overtime on Cafe. We've got a slightly different kitchen setup from them than the one we saw from BDS. They do have the Tachanka playing inside a bakery, but they've got a rotation out to red stairs, which is going to allow for a little bit of freedom of movement there. They could maybe rotate out of bakery back into site without having to go through prep, and vice versa. They could send somebody out to support bakery a little bit easier. So BDS, we'll see whether they push into that side of the map. For now, they're going to go for that top floor clearance. We've seen this so many times from Shaiko. I talk about Shaiko's just intense entry play and where he just moves in and just goes through the map so quickly with all these drones ahead of him. And Cafe is the one that is always in my mind of him doing it because he just moves so confidently on this map.
And here, there they are, demonstrating that all the way across the top. Ranshiro's locking off the far side. Rafal brought the role of the Kali to try and cause some devastation across the backboards. But it's a loud gun, it's a noisy gun, and it's a gun that drives its point home as soon as that trigger is pulled. And on a site like this, it means that some of those walls are potentially going to fall quicker than they might otherwise go, and quick is a game that Empire are not really trying to play right now. The destruction starts to rain its way across, and Shaiko's backed up here into the spot that we saw Joystick play a few times before there. Just going to take care of not that shield. Didn't quite
get the roll too far, and the shield had the cover of the wall. I'm not sure if Shaiko will be aware of that just yet. He does have another nade, so he can try again, but his pinball angles were just a little bit off there. The grenade just going too deep into the corridor. For the time being, he has a little bit of support from Brede as well, but it's important that they get that man cleared out because they can't really play into Freezer until they do. Shaiko just takes the run pass. Look at all the information that he's pinging out there with the Gemini clone, and that's going to give BDS the information. The question is now, can they act on it? We're coming into that final minute. Deployable shield is still in place. Smoke canisters being deployed. Empire doing a great job of delaying things here, but the shield is gone.
That's it. It took a lot of time and a lot of effort, but it's taken out. Now Alem's going to hold on the backboard and hope he can be the one that dunks the player. No! It's Dan with a great swing there, is able to get one more, and he's just going to keep himself sitting. I wouldn't say pretty, but it's dangerous, and it's danger that they need right now quite desperately. They go a little bit wider. BDS are just sort of making their presence known, and Dan, he makes his, but it's battled back. Finally have a trade, but only have 30 seconds. They've been able to get a little bit of a hold here, and they still have some of this swing round and the big ground floor bar, but it's a quick pop and lock down as they stop the fight, and there's Shepard with a battle back pre-day. A 2 versus 2 and just over 10 seconds, run through the fire and the flames and try and cook up a storm on the backside of the kitchen, as Breday's going to see if he can do what he loves to do so well, stick it. As Renshiro just bites and nibbles at the players, it's a post plant. It might be the last of the day, and it is! BDS are your reigning EUL champions, and they take a crown that they have more than ably stamped their letters on with a big French flag and a sign that says something along the lines of less success.
Well, what a way to claim the EUL 2021 title for BDS there. They have done that in outstanding fashion here. In a best of 5, they have only allowed Empire 5 rounds across 3 maps. Unbelievable scoreline from BDS, and what a dominant performance.
It wasn't quite the rematch of Mexico. I think I'll be the first to say that, but it is a match that these two teams have butted heads about so many times throughout the year, and to be fair, and a lot of other different points, it could have been an entirely different Empire. Today was not their day, but still, the year is theirs. Second place. They've had a great showing from where they were, and 2022 is a year that they've promised is going to be a great bit of growth, but BDS... I mean, it's a fantastic play day. What a showing. It raises that question once again. Please do it on the biggest stage so we can have an EU victor. Please. But for now, we'll let you have this success, the trophy and the title. And we'll let them break it down on the desk. A 3-0 EUL finals. Congratulations, BDS.
What does it take to create the future of a game?